college started postgraduate courses in the year 2008 in chemistry and social work. After becoming autonomous, it added few more courses in all disciplines. Today, the college has 11 postgraduate programs under choice-based credit system pattern. The courses are designed to give weightage in core papers to learn more of skills, supported by soft core papers and open elective from other departments to enhance students' knowledge beyond their program. The University of Mysore has recognized the chemistry, social work, journalism, and physics departments as research centers. 4 students have enrolled for their PhD program. To provide better facilities, an independent postgraduate center was established with well-designed labs, library, classrooms, and multimedia projectors with internet connectivity and uninterrupted power backup. The overall program outcome of postgraduate courses is to train the students to acquire knowledge leading to innovations, entrepreneurship, new technologies backed by effective communication skills. The curriculum of the programs is regularly revised as per the need of the society. Some of the major innovations introduced in the curriculum are open electives, interdisciplinary papers, and Swayam MOOC courses. The students are trained through blended teaching with flipped classes. The students and faculty members continue to enrich their knowledge by organizing and attending seminars, workshops in the college. To inculcate research culture among the staff and students, the department have introduced project works leading to publication of original research articles in reputed journals. The college is also bringing out a biannual St. Philo's multidisciplinary peer-reviewed research journal with ISSN number to publish their research articles. The faculty members have completed UGC-funded research projects. The management also supports with seed money to carry out research.
A warm afternoon to you all. A healthy outside starts from inside, says Robert Unrich. I am Maria Akshita, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, St. Philomena's Postgraduate and Research Center. Welcome you all for today's webinar on immunity in today's world. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them along with your name and institution in the chat box. Questions will be answered by the speaker at the end of the session. And I request you all to maintain stable internet connection throughout the session. It is mandatory for all the students to fill in the feedback form each day in order to procure the e-certificate. Today we have with us Dr. Hemachandra Jha, Assistant Professor, IIT Indore, India, who would be presenting the topic Immune Warriors, Role of Interferons, B cell and T cell against viral infection. On this note, I request Ms. Renita, Assistant Professor, Department of Biochemistry, to introduce the speaker.
A pleasant evening to one and all. I deem it my honor and privilege to introduce today's speaker for the first session, Dr. Hemachandra Jha, Assistant Professor, IIT Indore. Dr. Hemachandra Jha completed his Masters in Biochemistry in the year 2003 from Devi Ahalya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. He worked as a Junior Research Fellow from 2003 to 2004, Department of Biochemistry, Bose Institute, Calcutta. He obtained his PhD in the year 2010 from the Department of Microbiology and Tissue Culture, National Institute of Pathology, ICMR, Delhi, with 20 paper publications to his credit. He completed his postdoctoral research in the year 2015 from Department of Microbiology, University of Pennsylvania, School of Medicine, Philadelphia, USA. He is currently serving as Assistant Professor of Bioscience and Biomedical Engineering in IIT Indore. Dr. Hemachandra Jha's research interest includes pathogens, associated disease pathogenesis, and he is currently guiding 8 PhD students for their PhD research. Sir has published 53 research articles in reputed journals and has also authored 6 book chapters and has 1 patent filed in his name for the therapeutic targets for gamma herpes infected neuronal cells. He has delivered 32 presentations in various national and international conferences, and Dr. Jha is also as a resource person for nearly 20 lectures in different platforms. Dr. Hemachandra Jha has been awarded many awards, and he is the recipient of Ramanujan Fellowship in the year 2016, Ramalinga Swami Re-Entry Fellowship in the year 2015, and he was also appointed as a research associate at University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Jha is the recipient of funds from CSIR and DST, for which he is the principal investigator. Sir is also an active member of many scientific and professional bodies. To name a few, the Cytometry Society of India since 2008, European Society of Cardiology from 2009, and a life member of American Society of Microbiology. Sir is a independent peer reviewer for many reputed journals like Nature Scientific Reports, PLOS ONE, Frontiers in Immunology, and Gene, etc. Today, Dr. Hemachandra Jha will deliver a session on immune warriors, role of interferons, B cells, and T cells. We are privileged to have you amongst us, sir. I request you to kindly begin the session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you all organizers for giving me this opportunity. I'm really thank to you all. Glad to meet you, this audience. One of my very good friend, I guess you all know him, possibly, Dr. Mahadis Prasad. He is my buddy in my postdoctoral place. And still we are in touch, I think right now in Europe. And he told me that, yeah, are you okay with this? I said, yeah, definitely. Why not? If you are suggesting, I am always. And thank to him as well as all of you. So should I share my slide now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so by training, actually, MSc in biochemistry, and then my PhD I have done in bacterio and cardiac stuff like chlamydia pneumoniae in coronary artery disease in Delhi in association with Safdarjung Hospital campus and AIIMS Delhi. Then in US, we did like viruses, Epstein-Barr virus, Kaposi sarcoma herpes virus in cancer. And before coming to India, I just tried with some gastric cancer in the bacteria like Helicobacter pylori and neural cells as well as gastric cells also. So here, last 4 years, I was trying to understand how Epstein-Barr virus and Helicobacter pylori co-infection leads to the aggressive gastric carcinoma, as well as the Epstein-Barr virus and some other bacteria like Chlamydia pneumoniae in the neurodegenerative disorders or Alzheimer, like multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer, as well as in malaria also they are having co-infection. But last 6-7 months this coronavirus came, and somehow I'm we are the virologists, so students are in home, and then we started looking why this coronavirus is so what they have done. So we started reading and started writing something, understanding something. So we started with clinical stuff initially, and so we published one, and 2-3 others are in the communication right now in the revision. And then we started some in silico stuff also to understand like how drug development against the coronaviruses, how drug repurposing can be understandable. So our and some biochemical stuff as well. So I will cover those part in the later on of my talk, what we are trying to understand with the coronaviruses. Initially, whatever the topic I am covering, so I'm going with that. The slide is visible. Yeah. Hello.
Sir, yes, sir. It's visible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the contents of my topic are introduction, a bit of the coronaviruses that I think most of us are aware. Then different immune organs and immune cells. Although I can say that these literature is not so exhaustive because only few labs are working right now on the in vitro, or you can say in vivo, even very less labs. So whatever we are having right now information is, I can say the superficial. It's not very well rigorous edited one, but yes, we have some leads. Then virus entry into the cells and mechanism. A lot of things you can see in the newspaper as well as. So we are talking about the virus entry and the initial mechanism. Then B cell and T cell response. Yes, B cell and T cell response is very critical and important. But again, I can say not many and too much papers available in that domain yet. So whatever we are understanding, that is, adjacent to the SARS, what happened earlier in 2009 or 2003 outbreak, with that context only. In this scenario right now, not very exhaustive literature has been not done. Then fifth point is massive immune response effect on body. Yes, that we are talking because we are having a lot of clinical data worldwide, and so we can definitely speak here a lot. And then systemic viral infection, some of our lab work, what we are doing, and yeah, conclude. So my slide number 1 of it, I can say technically, is that visible now?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir. Visible, sir. Proceed, sir.
So, as you all know that March 11th, this coronavirus, COVID-19, declared by the WHO, when more than 1 lakh cases already registered, infected, and 114 countries are in that scenario. By day before yesterday, like 9th, we can see now 2016 countries with more than 27 million people, and then 8.9, you can say 9 lakh people even death. And in India, now we are reaching approximately how much? 45 lakh people infected, and more than, you can say, 75,000 deaths. This is official data. We all know that many times we are not able to cover, not only in India, worldwide. And then I can say that not only in the China, what we are supposed to understand, many other countries also, many officials, either they are from the US government or European government, or I can say in India also, they are reporting that it is difficult to cover all the cases. So whatever figure we are seeing may not be complete. Yes, that I can say. So now, how it started, just a little bit glimpse. So basically in December 8, officially, yeah, I can say officially because some reports are saying on those are not definitely officially confirmed, but that from the August, September only, this outbreak was there in the Wuhan. But China only December 8, the first patient developed symptoms in Wuhan coronavirus, as we know in the literature. Then 31st December, China alerts WHO about several pneumonia cases. And there are lots of things that are initially they want to hide it, but then it's not. And then we can say first time in January 13, as we can say here, first case outside the China in Thailand has been reported. But then some of the cases also came, maybe you guys gone through that France, they reported in some cases in the December only. And we know that Wuhan is a very, business kind of city, like we have like Mumbai or Bangalore or something like that. So there are lots of business hub, every country almost in the world having the flight connection, everything. And somehow they don't want to stop it. And that's why it is spread everywhere. Anyway, now we have to deal with it. Now, introduction part, I wanted to show it here just a simple structure of the coronaviruses. Why I want to show it here? Because later on we may talk about a little bit mutations of the coronavirus. And in the government agencies also and many other places also, you may see that, oh, we have to wash our hand. And someone saying, oh, you should do at least 30 seconds. And then virus infection or contagious. Why? Because we can see here in this structure, outside, very outside is like the third one, from top third one, or from bottom also third one, a spike protein. This is the present in the outside of the virus structure almost. So basically this is the first protein which comes in the contact. And literature suggests that this spike protein is made up of lipid. And lipid is, it can dissolve by the soap solution. So that's why everyone telling you, oh, wash your hand with soap and try to do at least 20 seconds to 30 seconds. So basically this spike protein basically dissolved, or you can say deactivated, and then virus, when it taking the entry inside the host cell, it uses the spike protein. And then it, that we are going to address that, how it is using the host receptor. So if this spike protein of virus is inactivated, then they may not able to invade the host cell. That's why everyone talking about, oh, wash your hand frequently. Yeah, that's the reason. Now, evolution of coronaviruses. So this is not only COVID or SARS-CoV-2. There are many others also. Yes, mostly bats are the primary source, as we can see here. And not only bats, sometimes rodents are also, but very few. But bats are, yes, the primary source. And when it comes to the pivot, it was SARS-CoV. You can see many of the papers where they are comparing SARS-CoV versus SARS-CoV-2. That's why they find out, like we will talk later on a little bit, ACE2 receptor. And they found out, no, ACE2 was not that much prevalent and that much important in the SARS-CoV, but now in COVID-2, yes, that is a lot new kind of mutations appear because of the this SARS-CoV-2 for the ACE2, and it is making more difficult for us. If it goes to the pig, it is SARS-CoV. If it goes with the camel, MERS, I think that outbreak happened earlier in this century. In the Iran or some Arab countries. And then if pangolin, right now it is pangolin, through pangolin, so it is SARS-CoV-2. And then some others also like NL63, and with cattle it is OC43, and even we don't know what are the in the between maybe the HKU. So many a times when you saw any genomics paper or comparison, you may find out some other SARS also, not SARS-CoV-2, you may find like MERS, SARS-CoV or OC43 or HKU1, you can see that. So they are basically originated from some other sources. Now, this is the spread, how it is spreading. So yeah, modes of transmission. So modes of transmission, we know in every literature we are seeing fecal oral route. Yes, it can go a fecal also as well as the oral also. And then not only that, eye. That's why we are taking the face protector, direct contact, you're touching, vertical, mother to fetus. So lots of controversial, or no, you can say not controversial, both kind of layers, mother to fetus going, not going, many things are coming out, but yes, there are chances it is going. Asymptomatic, many people, they don't have symptoms, but then they can also pass. Droplets, any kind of droplets, like it is either out or it is inside, both are coming out. So any kind of body fluid, you can say, I can say as a virologist, yes, if this is the case, then any kind of body fluid, either it is breast milk, either it is your tear, either it is, I can say, semen, ovum, anything it may contain. Aerosol, if it is aerosol, then why not the body fluid? It definitely is in the body fluid also. And then this is airborne transmission, it is automation and droplets also coming out. That's why I say, oh, it is aerosolic. So basically, if someone going, and basically if you don't see anyone in surroundings, and then you don't wear the mask or something like that. But it is possible if someone from that area, very just before a few seconds or something like that, a few minutes, sneezing or something done, and then you are passing there, and that area may contain some droplets of the virus, so you may have it. And the most importantly, viral shedding from coughing and sneezing, settling for person, object contamination. As we know that various other objects, like I think some comparison also, we know that like cardboard possibly they stay 72 hours to 96 hours. If something is there, they can active. Then you can say plastic, maybe 48 hours, something like that. Then you can say steel, it is 24 to 36 hours. And then copper, yes, 4 to 6 hours. So different objects, their virus life is different. So it is not like that, oh, cardboard is there, I'm not seeing anyone. Or plastic, some stuff is there, I'm not seeing anyone. So it is fine. No, it is possible if someone, even from not today, yesterday also came from there, and this have some kind of a virus and spill out somehow, you may get it. So better to wipe your hand. That's why wipe your hand or contact stuff as much as possible, as quick as possible. Yeah, deep and contagious respiratory deposition by the nasal breathing. The next one, immune system, organs and cells how they are responding. So as we all know that mostly we have the immune barriers like lymphoid organs of body. Primary lymphoid organs. So in bottom one, we can say bone marrow. Yes, that makes all mostly the lymphoid, barriers. And second one is the thymus. Yeah, so bone marrow and thymus are the primary lymphoid organ. Mostly they are involved. The second one is the secondary lymphoid organ. You can say peripheral lymphoid organ. They are like spleen and lymph node basically, and then they are from the blood. So if they are not, if the bone marrow and thymus, they are not involved or they are not associated, then it is coming through the secondary lymphoid organ. And the third one is the also mucosa associated lymphoid organ, malt and gall, like lungs and gut. They are also having some patches, and they can also act as lymphoid organ. On the depends on when we got the trigger or some kind of signal from our body. And then skin associated lymphoid organs are also there. They are not so major, but yes, they are there too. Now, so these are our barriers which can protect us, which can make kind of shield against any pathogens. So different immune cells for attacking the virus particularly. This is the generalized picture, and it has been understanding that possibly this is the the mode of action. Although I can say this is the hypothesis because this is just appeared in the September 9, 2020, like very recently, like this one. But again, still I can say you that maybe when many other people, many other labs, as well as many other strains of the coronaviruses, because we know the strains are also vary. Maybe the Bangalore strain or Mysore strain vary from Indore, that is vary from the Nagaland, and vary from the Maharashtra. So that may also vary a bit, not a lot, but bit. Either the immune function and many others. So if we start from here in this slide, A is the phagocytic cells. So basically viruses when go inside, it starts the phagocytosis, that kind of stuff, and then it triggers the APC, antigen presenting cells. So these cells are important, and basically it recruit in the body. Yes, something came outside from outside. So our antigen presenting cells start acting, and then T helper cells, they are also start acting, or the MSC class 1, right? And then that follows to the MSC class 2. So I think these stuff like CD4, CD8, MSC class 1, MSC class 2, you may have already the idea about it. So basically it starts with the CD4, and then it's come to the CD4 again, procure or recruit the all B cells. And then it starts with the lymphocyte activation. And it leads to the, like, this is plasma B cells and the IgM. Initially, it started with the IgM penta form of the IgM, and then that IgM again recruit the IgG later on, IgM to the IgG, and the same time IgE, the hyperinflammation, you can say hypersensitivity, is also started. So sneezing and many other stuff is also there. Ultimately, all these together, if it is continuing, progressing, right, and if not stopped through the medicine or something like that, then it start again recruiting all MSC class 2 as well as the different immune barriers like basophil, PDC, natural cells, neutrophils, all these cells. And then it really have a massive effect that's called the cytokine storm, or you can say inflammatory response of cytokines. Many times in any scientific paper, or you can say earlier, people are citing, yes, most of the people are dying because of the cytokine storm. And even the treatment the doctors are given to just repress, to suppress the cytokine storm. So if someone delay the cytokine storm part, possibly they may get relief, that the condition of the patient is not worsened that much. So one thing is there, and second thing that we are going to talk, like this cytokine storm, it is one kind of unique pattern people are observing in the SARS-CoV-2 somehow, and then it leads to the multi-organ failure, so that we are going to talk. But basically it kind of activate all kind of response like paracrine responses, and then go many other organs, and we know that all of the organs having that kind of receptor, which is somehow good for virus and bad for us, is available in most of our internal body organelles, like those organelles derived from the endothelial cells, like heart, lung, kidney, liver, brain not that much, but yes, that way also. So basically these cells have very good expression, or very good of the ACE2 receptors, or some others also like TIMP or TACE, and these receptors are very well known, well taken for the SARS-CoV-2. That's why most of the people, you can see that those are like dying, they may have some kind of comorbidity. So that kind of data I'm also going to explain it. Now, how the SARS-CoV-2 entry into the cells, and so basically SARS-CoV-2 just a model wise entering here, and it with the ACE2 receptor. I think many of us now heard ACE2 everywhere. So yes, ACE2 receptor is important, but this is not the only receptor which is important, but yes, this receptor is prominently important to help SARS-CoV-2 get inside the body, like cells of respiratory tract cells. Because if you say mouth and oral and fecal, so definitely when it goes inside, how it is going? It's going by the endocytosis. So it makes endosomes, and then it does two mostly functions. So the machinery of cells, basically host machinery, if it is survive inside us, and then it multiply through the lytic replication, multiple viruses. That is mostly all these viruses does, and then basically it at the same time at the increase of the virus, it have like whatever we discussed the last slide, it ultimately create interferon like alpha and beta and many others also, pro-inflammatory cytokines, and cytokines increases. So pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6, IL-10, interferon alpha, beta, TNF alpha, many of them are increased a lot, massively level, and you can see cytokine storm. Further, it also produces paracrine effect, and then it leads to the various other organs. So now I want to show here a little bit busy slide, but still I want to see how the downstream process going on when it reaches inside the body. So in the left side, you can see SARS-CoV-2. Right? Are you able to see that? And then here there is a arrow, TIMP RSS2. So basically SARS-CoV-2, you can say had a spike, mostly a spike, is taking the help of ACE2, and then it also needed TIMP RSS2, and it come inside the cells. Which cells? Host cells. And then it comes to through the endocytosis. Further, it has been hypothesized that it recruits various TLR, toll-like receptors protein, And not only that, it make like complex with the MID88 and TRF. Basically, this complex is very well known already in the viruses, influenza viruses family, and it possibly taking that step. These TLR domain that is very well known for the pathogens, like either in the bacteria also, either for the viruses also, although the players are relatively different, but then it ultimately triggered the interferons like IRF3, IRF7, that is very well established in the virology viruses. So not only the SARS-CoV-2, other viruses like herpes viruses, alpha, beta, gamma herpes viruses, E. coli, Clostridium, many other bacteria also has been known to use this mechanism. Yes. And then second one, you can say one through the TLR. Second one, if the endosomes coming, and then basically it triggering the RDRP. RDRP is a virus protein. Like first one is the what do we talk about? This entry spike. Now this is the RDRP. So if you, I don't have that slide, I guess repurposing one, but you can see the when we are using the drug right now, repurposing drug. So like anti-chloroquine basically helping, or you can say, or blocking the entry of the virus. So basically it acts somewhere, either the inhibiting TIM-RSS2, either in inhibiting ACE2. But if you talk about the remdesivir, or sorry, those pathogens one, they are blocking this process of the virus or RDRP of the virus. So basically replication of the virus, pathogenesis of the virus, they block. So that is also one of the important aspects, that what kind of drug you are using and what kind of stage of the person is. If person is already infected, then blocking kind of stuff, the drug is not going to work much. But person is not infected, then you should use that. But if person is infected, then you should use those are going to block the virus, right? Yeah. So in the RDRP, it help in the tetramerization of the viruses, and then basically it hijack the using the like mitochondria of the host, and by that it triggered again both interferon as well as the NF-kappa B, very well known for all pathogens through the IKB pathway, and again it ultimately reaches to the nucleus of the host, and it create a lot of cytokine storm. Ultimately, IFN alpha, beta, IL-6, IL-8, IL-1 beta, IRF7, ISG. So all these stuff are basically now massive cell, you can say cytokine storm, and that leads to the start of pathogenesis. Yes, and there's one more entry route. Again, basically these cytokine storm give the signal, and again secondary. You can say IFNR, AR1, like this receptors 1 and 2, again activating JAK1, JAK pathway, STAT pathway, and again it is. So basically it's a feed loop mechanism, feedback mechanism. So basically one step, and again that cells getting infected, reinfected, something like that. So this is the mostly signaling expected in the SARS-CoV-2 till. So little bit more what we talk there. So that IFN alpha and beta, we know that it get expressed after the cytokine storm. So basically it now, in fact, if you see here, left side infected cells, first 3 different color, and the right side 3 uninfected cells. So basically these, now you don't have to use the virus, even their secretion, this IFN alpha and beta receptor, or you can say JAK-STAT, this soup or this, you may say, microenvironment is going to make susceptible or going to trigger uninfected cells and it start the signaling, right? And again start producing the signal against the viruses. So you can say antiviral proteins. So they sometimes uninfected cells, because they got already anti IFN alpha and beta, and it, but not virus, only the signaling of the viral protein. So basically it may help, it may protect themselves, and it may make what antiviral against them. So basically herd immunity. Or second thing, people are saying, oh, how many people have the antibody already? Oh, 60%, 40%, 80%. So basically they people, they don't have their own infection, or basically infection maybe below the threshold, but they got this kind of response, inflammatory response, and then their cells, their body start producing it, and so they are having immunity against it. But then how long? That is also a question. So many times people say, oh, this is 4 to 6 months, maximum 4 to 6 months. But I think one case it came in Bangalore or some other places also. Sometimes some people maybe even 1 to 2 months also, but that is very rare, 4 to 6 months. But at the same time, if you made vaccine also against this virus, like antibody based, that is also going to protect you only 4 to 6 months. Similarly, if you get herd immunity as well as the infection one time and then you are thinking, oh, I'm fine. Yes, you can find possibly 4 to 6 months. So this antiviral protein or antiviral protection makes sure you maybe more 4 to 6 months. But after that, again, you may be susceptible for that. Yeah, that is again a hypothesis, not that much proven yet. Yes, endocytosis again happened, tries to hack the machinery, and then but then cells die. So basically, those cells are already infected or something like that. They die. They save themselves. They are not proliferating. They are not again making the new viruses and infecting the new cells. Basically, they simply die and just clean it. Now, yeah. So in this process, there are two cells. We know that B cells and T cells both are very important. So right now, I think we are talking about the B cells. So they are making antigen presentation cells are APC basically, and then there does the proteolytic degradation, right? Degradation basically leads to the T cell activation. So B cell start with the B cells, it recruit the antigen presenting cells, proteolytic degradation, and further this 6 to 8 amino acid it make and then it go and bind to the CD4 T helper cells, and then it trigger the T cells, and then antigen presentation and T cell activation start. Basically, how we are getting protected. So that is started in this manner. Yeah, T cell make then specific antibodies, and then we can and grain enzyme, and in this way, cells those are infected, they may die of infected cells, right? But they survive in this way. So now I can say, just summarize for the B cell mechanism, I can say how one cell get infected and then that produce IFN alpha and beta, and it trigger the APC. And first it started with the B cells, and then again it triggered the CD4 and T cell activation. So in these two, so here if SARS-CoV-2 come into the thymus, right, spleen, anything, and then it started with the B cell receptor, BCR, B cell receptor. Basically, then it linked with the B cells, and it activated the MSC class 2, CD4 TC. Then again, it is coming with the CD4 T cell receptors, like CD28, one of them. And basically, then Th2 cells specifically leads to the cytokine storm, you can say, one is like IL-6, IL-10, IL-4, IL-5, TJ beta, specifically in the SARS-CoV-2. And then it's triggered again, making some memory cells, 4 to 6 months, you can say, of plasma cells, again, to for the you can act for the clearance of the SARS-CoV-2 clearance. So this story is done here. Now the second part is that this APC, MSC class 2, CD4 T cells, right, Th2, it is coming in the right direction for the these proliferation cytokines, and again another one, MSC class 2, CD4 T cells goes to the Th1 cells also. This Th1 cells here expressing IL-2, IL-12, IFN gamma, TNF alpha mechanism, and then basically it leads to the perforin and grain enzyme and effector CTL cells and die, apoptosis and cell die. So either it is making clearance, SARS-CoV-2 clearance, virus clearance, if it is coming through the Th2, or if it is coming through the Th1, then that cells through the apoptosis die. So these two mechanisms basically B cell govern in the SARS-CoV-2 infection. So written part here showing B cell gets activated after the antigen presentation, yes, leads to antibody production, yes, and then IgM basically it started, receptor detect antigen molecule, and plasma and memory cells is there, and then basically it try to clear the infection. When we talk about the T cells, mediated response to SARS-CoV-2, so after the B cells, T cell come into the picture, and it's very critical and important. So SARS-CoV-2 infecting anyone, one person, and start the replication inside the body, and virus endocytosis and antigen presentation start, and then they recruit all these various immunological variants like dendritic cells, And through the clonal expansion of the CD4 cells, B cell get primed, right? And then antibody B cells, secreting B cells produces inflammatory cytokines, antibody secretions, and that leads to the clearance of the COVID that we have seen in the last slide. But if it is coming through the another way, dendritic cells, cross presentation with the CD4 T cells, again, it is coming through the clonal expansion, inflammatory cytokines, virus clearance, and it may go perforin granzyme that we have seen in the BCL1 also, apoptosis of infected cells, or by the fast ligand trail apoptosis infected cells or pro-inflammatory cytokines. So in both ways, we can say the T cell mediated and B cell mediated one. Till now, what we know about, these are the mostly known mechanism from the SARS-CoV-2. So virus endocytosis and antigen presentation by APCs, and CD4, TH and CD4 T helper cells and T cytosolic cells secrete inflammatory cytokines. Yeah. Now the progression of SARS-CoV-2. Sorry. Yeah, in the inflammation. So basically, inflammation, auto-reactivation, we can say. Highly active immune cells, robust immune response or cytokine storm, more pro-inflammatory response, including IL-6, IL-10, GM-CSF, and severe inflammatory. Even I think many of you are aware that nowadays, not only the antigen test or antibody test, many people, they are measuring IL-6 also. Some a dozen of people, or even in Delhi, I know that some hospitals, they are measuring IL-6 level also, and they find out, okay, what are the level of IL-6, and then they can say that what is the status of patients' inflammatory immune status. So basically, by mapping the pro-inflammatory cytokines, they are able to judge the immune status of that person, and then medication accordingly they provide. So this in this picture we can see earlier stage. First half and second half severe stage. So in earlier stage, yes, B cell activation, basically it's coming through the capillary blood inside the cells, B cell activation, T cell activation, then the alveolar macrophages, and ultimately leads to the fibroblast, hyaline membrane, neutrophil, all these like deregulated fibroblast, cytokine storm, and monocytes. So immune boosting, you can say earlier, and then it goes to the all activated severe inflammation damaging in the severe stage. Now the interferon, so role in the viral infection known, like there are three kinds of the interferon. Alpha beta, that is type 1. So basically can be produced by almost any cell upon stimulated by virus. Primary function is to induce viral resistance in cell. So that is type 2, IFN gamma, secreted only by natural killer cells and T lymphocytes, signal the immune system to respond to infectious agent. And type 3, sorry, that is recently discovered in fungal and viral infection, and not much has been, you can say, explored in this SARS-CoV-2 infection yet, as per my knowledge. So now the virus infection, if you can see, yes, alpha beta, like type 1 coming inside, it producing IRF, interferon units, and then also all these interferon alpha, beta, and then gamma also, and further it leads to the so basically infected stimulated cells to the interferon treated cells. You can predict in these two ways. Both we can make it out, alpha, beta to gamma. Now overall there are 6 stages important for SARS-CoV-2 immunopathology. First is lymphopenia. Lymphopenia when CD8 T cells and natural killer cells, CD4 T cells, B cells are down-regulated. They used up and they get down-regulated. So lymphopenia is called lymphopenia. Second is dysfunction of lymphocytes. So basically cytokine storm, IL-2, TNF-alpha, IFN gamma increases a lot in T cell activation, and that leads to the all these T cell activation marker upregulated. OX40, 41BB, CD44, CD38, CD69. That's further lead to granulocyte abnormality. And here T cell exhaustion and NK cells exhaustion happen. And these markers, NKG2A, TIM3, NKG2A, they are increased. And this is the third step, lymphocyte dysfunction. Fourth one will be the enormous secretion of cytokines like IL-1 beta, IL-6, IL-10, and cytokine storms. They happen. And that leads to the down regulation of monocyte, eosinophil, and basophils. So basically abnormalities of granulocyte and monocytes, and they get downregulated. And increased production of cytokines, yes, like IL-1 beta, IL-6, IL-10. These are the red one are very prominent one, but others are also participated. And then it increases the antibody titer. Antibody titer means here we are thinking about the IgG. Basically IgM, initially it started, but then it's taken over by the IgG. So basically ultimately IgG response is very high. So these are the cumulative immune system alteration due to the SARS-CoV-2 infection. This is the coming with some other like science paper just in, I think in the June possibly, and then they're saying systemic effect on COVID-19, not only the lungs, it is heart and vessels, brain, eyes, nose, liver, kidney, intestine. These organs are also affected because of the receptor. Now I'm talking about the issue addressed by our scientific research team last 6 and 7 months. I think I have still 10-15 minutes, so I'm trying to address this. So like I started my diagnosis of SARS-CoV-2 at MGM College Indore, because that time it was just started in pandemic and then they need our support. So me and one of my colleagues in the AVB, we went there and then we helped them initially, and then now they're doing good. Then second stuff, what we have seen pattern of coronavirus spread worldwide, clinically how they are spreading. Then initially we saw, oh, this virus is old age virus, like only old age people are getting infected. And then we saw, oh, this is male virus, only male are infected. But then, so we compare India as well as worldwide data, some of the publication, and we have seen, no, that's not the actual case. Then mutant look out, like, mutant was very hot, like why this is adapting from country to country, one state to another state, and season to season. And this was smart virus, that's why mutation is important. And then the SARS-CoV-2 manifest, how it is into the brain and then gastrointestinal immunity. As we all know, right now SARS-CoV-2, when it is infecting, mostly we have disturbed gastrointestinal. But I'm sure in the future, those are having the SARS-CoV-2 infection, their neurological symptoms is going to affect it more and more, and they are vulnerable for that. So we need to understand how this we can, cope up with that, and how what kind of changes is going to make through the SARS-CoV-2 infection in future of those infected patients. They already get treated, but still they will have consequences. And then drug repurposing, how they are using. So this is just one, So here also I can say, even right now, diagnosis is going on many places. So a lot of difficulty in diagnosis, like standardization, appropriate diagnosis kit. Like every third, fourth day, ICM are giving some new kit, and then you have to standardize it. And then various kits are like, one time it's called from our neighbor country that we know, and all kits are like, not good, like bad. Even they're giving false result, vague result. So we have to report it. And many a time, like when they're saying, like there are so many genes of virus, and we know the all genes are not expressing every time. Some genes are expressing early, some genes are expressing late, some genes are expressing yes all the time. But then if I'm using the primer of the late expressing gene, and some person is coming infected just a 24-hour or 48-hour ago, just early, how I'm going to detect it? No. So basically choosing the target of the SARS-CoV-2 target is very important. It cannot be, oh, I have a real-time PCR, I can make the primer and then that's it. No, that's not the case. You have to see, you have to classify the patient group also, either they are already infected, either they are susceptible or possibly infected, and then accordingly, virus gene also, you have to put on the PCR, but those things are not that much streamlined yet. Safety, yes, precaution during sample collection, PCR identification. We have seen various healthcare workers and researchers get infected worldwide, not only India, worldwide. So that we have to take care. Sample collection and processing should be streamlined, yes. And requirement of BSL-3 or at least BSL-2, yes. We cannot do without BSL-2B. No, not A. We cannot do. In 2B must be. And data analysis, this is the most important and critical part that is lacking in many of the places, because you cannot expect some robot or something, because you see, out of 40 cycle, if I hope many of you know the real-time PCR principle. So basically we are running the 40 cycle or 45 cycle, and we are saying, yeah, 35 cycle is positive. So 34.9 is positive and 35.3 is negative. This is not acceptable, but that is happening either in many other places, but that's not good. In that case, you should have a buffer, 32 to 38. You should do it again and check where it is coming out. Otherwise, today, if 37 or 36.2 is positive, maybe not. tomorrow that is because we know it's too sensitive. Then we are doing it in single well all over the India. That's not again acceptable. Mostly I can say, but anyway. So that's why we see a lot of discrepancies. Clinic to clinic, and many people, yes, today positive, after 5 days negative, today negative, after 7 days positive. Oh God, these things are there. Anyway, now age bias. Age bias. It is, yes, mostly young, or you can say the older people are infected. But again, it depends on who is going out, who is exposed. They are getting infected. And then that we have seen various countries like Germany, India, Italy, Netherlands, South Korea, Spain. So here we basically seen the start of the infection to the till April 10th, yes. And we have seen that India is very much well controlled till that area, till that time. So we can say slope of the infection is only 6.9 in India. In Germany, see any other country, like only South Korea, yes, second South Korea is also good. But otherwise, other countries are not so good. And then you can say here the death reports. In death report also, yes, India 17.6, South Korea, yeah, much better. Very small country, very good health system is every other country like here, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, South Korea, Spain is much better than us. But still, we are far better than many other countries, I can tell you. And if you talk about our healthcare system and many other stuff, it's not compared at all. But still, we control a lot many ways. Still, I think it is going on, but it could have been disaster earlier. Many possibilities, like we had Japanese encephalitis virus vaccine, we had BCG vaccine, like anti-tuberculosis vaccine, and then our immunity is also differently grown. So we still much in good condition. So we need to understand that. Now, one of the publication we also got already, where we compare data from Italy, France, Netherlands, Sweden, and Spain with the comorbidity, like heart diseases, like CV, then hypertension, diabetes, chronic lung disease. And we have seen that mostly these drugs, these comorbidity people are very susceptible to death. Like if they are going to hospital, they are the more who is going to death with the coronavirus. So that could be two ways. Not only the virus, it is, yes, it is damaging the endothelial cells. That leads to the patient damage or completely all system failure. Second could be the medicine also. The medicine what is going to use for the coronaviruses, most of them are toxic for these patients. Like you can say out of 7, 4 of them toxic for CVD or hypertension, 3 of them for diabetes, 2 of them for lung diseases, 1 for kidney, 1 for neurological diseases. Then definitely if someone is already having that background and right now nobody is caring if that is heart or neurological or liver, they just want to treat for the coronavirus without checking much their background. So I think these are the earlier stories. Now people are trying a lot. So see, you can see in Iran or even in US or other places, initially it is 15% death. In India, 6 to 7% that time. Now it is 1%. So basically when doctors or many other people start realizing, no, we need to, it's not havoc. You have to be just a little bit careful and then treat accordingly. Give the medicine as per that person needed. It's not that one for everyone, no. Because one for everyone, then 7 out of 10 is going to die. Just because of we are giving the wrong medication. So that those things improved, I think, last couple of months, and that's why earlier like national average was 3.4%. Now it is 1%. Even we are including the earlier one. So see, things are getting improved. So prior knowledge of an individual health is critical to avoid fatal repercussions of COVID-19 treatment. Now this is some of the mutation data what we have seen, and here also I can say the fourth one we can see the RBD, that is the this is the binding domain. So binding domain. Okay, sorry, I forget it. So if you talk about this RBD domain, this has a very much a lot of variation, and so like we had included here more than 100 countries data till June 30, and then we analyzes approximately I can say 8,000 sequences, and there a spike protein, and we find out that yes, this spectrum of the mutations is very important, critical, and basically it leads to several stuff like the consistent increase of D614G mutation at regional levels may indicate a fitness advantage of virus, not us, virus. Then a SARS-CoV-2 variant with a spike G614 has replaced D614 at the dominant pandemic form. Yes, so COVID-2, they replace this mutation, and then it is very susceptible, very modern, or yeah. And then G614 mutation is associated with higher viral load of patients. You can see many newspapers also saying many times for other countries, 10 times more death or something like that viral load if this mutation is occurred, G614. And the D614G mutation in SARS-CoV-2 spike increases transduction of multiple human cell types. That is also fine if one is wild type and another one is this mutation. So basically this kind of mutation in the spike is able to infect various other organs very efficiently. So that's why this is more dangerous kind of a mutation of the SARS-CoV-2 virus till date. Yes. We are also involved in the investigation of plant-derived compound against SARS-CoV-2. So we are checking the various natural compound, and then we are checking the inhibitory binding affinity and of viral protein, protection against SARS-CoV-2 related comorbidities. Because we know that comorbidity is a very big problem, and then so we are also having that consideration: is that not toxic for liver, heart, kidney, or many others? So basically, conclusion from here: robust activation of immune cells leads to severe inflammation or cytokine storm. SARS-CoV-2 affect almost all of them, directly or indirectly, mostly. Severity of disease depends on SARS-CoV-2 strain. Few strains have more infectivity, like what we just seen last slide. Anti-inflammatory molecules, natural, synthetic, could be one way to reduce the inflammation. Because see, if you talk about the any new drug or the vaccine, it's not so easy. So basically, whatever drug already available, you just have to little modify and then use it. Otherwise, we don't know when it's going to stop, where to stop. Challenge of COVID-19: following the maintaining proper sanitary conditions, avoid travel and attending public procession as much as possible. Consumption of clean and properly cooked food is important. At least those foods are cooked or non-cooked. You have to differentiate. Additionally, health supplements may be taken to boost immunity. Yes, not too much, but yes, you should have regularly. Do not ignore, but take proper care of the affected people. Be a socially responsible. Stay in isolation if found positive. Yes, that is important. And this is my group member. Actually, in February we have a conference in IT Indore. So whatever work I have seen, I can tell you from here. I think you may know. I have the French, but not that time. So then this is Anu. She is like just 6 months old in my lab. Then Dharmendra, second one, a spec guy, green, I think, blue jacket. He is involved with some like 2.5 years now, 3 years almost. Then Omkar is also 3.5 years, and then Diksha is 3.5 years. Then Shweta approximately 4 years, and Nidhi 1.5 years, and Charu 4 years, Tarun 6 months, and then Buddhadev is 2 years. So they all are working, and some of the other our project interns, those are not here, like Ayan, Santhony, they also involve a lot stuff. And then my collaborator, like from my postdoc, UPenn University, Pennsylvania, Earl Robertson, then from Tezpur University, Anupam, then DAVV, Dr. Mani, from in IT Indore, Anupam, Parimal, from DAVV, Dr. Parmar, from IT Indore, Dr. Rajesh. So all these people are helping me in this, Corona time, either in the in silico or the pharmacy stuff or many other things, because that's not my domain. My domain is entirely in vitro or in vivo virology, cell biology, molecular biology, genetic engineering. But right now I can't do anything. So I have to do, they're helping me a lot, and we are doing. And then I'm encouraging IIT Indore, CSIR, Ramanujan, and DST EMR for the funding. Also that I'm not accommodating here. And stay immunized, COVID-19. Thank you. Any questions now? So I'm open for the question concern. Should I stop slides here or right now? Fine. You can stop it, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the pearls of wisdom. We will go ahead and take some questions now. Just a reminder, Please be sure to type your questions into the chat box. I request Dr. Doran D'Souza, Assistant Professor and HOD, Department of BWalk, to take over.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
It was an interesting talk. We have one question from Lydia Vandana, HOD of Biochemistry. She says the recurrence of COVID infection or infection related to lungs is reported nearly in 20% population. How exactly the immunopathology works in this context in spite of having these immune warriors?
Yeah, so ma'am, if one person is already infected, definitely the primary target is the lung. So that lung is already compromised. Now it has been seen, as we are saying, 20%, not 80%. So we have to study here basically a specific profiling of those 20%, like what kind of mutation, what kind of allelic variation, what kind of immunocompromise or earlier history these 20% have. That's why they are more susceptible for the reinfection. So virus is same. If it is reinfection, they should have 400 or not 100, you can say 50, 60 at least. But then, like I'm just comparing one thing, like H. pylori, one of the pathogen. It is infecting all of us, like we all are positive, 80% all of us are positive. But out of that, only 2% develop the gastric cancer. So basically here important not the H. pylori. H. pylori is in everywhere. But important is those 2%. Why these 2% are developing gastric cancer? Because their own genetics or some cofactors definitely that contribute to that. So again here, those 20% need to study more rather than the virus.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No more questions as of now. Over to Akshata.
Ma'am, your voice is not coming. Your voice is, I think you are mute.
You're on mute.
Yeah, you are still mute. Yeah, again mute. Is that voice was slide were visible and audible?
Thank you, Doran.
Oh, still.
Renita, to give the overview of the session.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your very informative presentation, where you actually spoke a lot in depth. You gave an in-depth knowledge of how the COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2 affects the individual. What is its cumulative immune system alteration, how it does, and you also he also gave importance to the prior knowledge, how the treatment has to be given to the individuals who have comorbidities. So a prior knowledge of the health condition of the individuals is essential while treating the COVID-19 patients. Okay. And overall, it was an informative presentation, and thank you, sir, for your knowledgeable talk. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. We break for 15 minutes and will resume at 5:30.